Dominica is wild and beautiful and a throwback to what the Caribbean probably looked like 50 or more years ago. Everything is small and low and close to the beach. The houses are painted bright, beautiful colors, and the people are friendly and curious and love interacting with the cruisers. I met a couple other cruisers and went on a river tour with them. This hut that we saw is actually one that was in Pirates of the Caribbean 2, I think, the Witch's Hut. I can't really remember. One of the pays guys, who are the guys who come around to your boats and help you pick up moorings and give you services if you need them, took us on this tour. You have to row up the river. There are no engines allowed because it's protected, and it's all beautiful and tangly and mangrovey. And he gave us a lovely, colorful history of the river and the town and the island. My first day in Dominica, one of the locals found me walking down the street and just started walking with me and pointing out all of the crazy medicinal plants and edible plants that were just on the side of the road, and told me about where this hot spring place is that you can go hang out at. Another one of the locals picked a bunch of almond fruit from this almond tree and cracked them open to get the nuts out, and came up to us when we were sitting on a bench with a handful of them so that we could try the almonds. It was a really amazing experience. Hardly any tourists, and most of the ones in Portsmouth were other yachties, so there was a really cool vibe there of the boating community. And then the local, with the boat friends that I made, we rented a car and drove into the interior of the island, which is just covered in lush, tangly forest, full of waterfalls and rivers and hidden little beaches on the east coast that are really bad anchorages if you have anything but one of these small fishing boats that you're just leaving by your village. Since it was the off-season, because it's kind of hurricane season, there was no one else there at all the beautiful touristy places, so we had whole waterfalls to ourselves where it would only be the group of us. And as I was hanging out at these places, I was imagining how much different it would be if you were surrounded by other tourists, and how beautiful and special it was that we were able to see all of these natural landmarks by ourselves, just in our own little company. Dominica has a river for every day of the year and more waterfalls than I can count, or probably anyone can count. There are beautiful ones that you can get to with just a short 20-minute or half-hour hike from the car, or you can go to ones that are an hour scrabble over slimy, algae, moss-covered rocks that you have to clamber over to. Dominica provided the perfect backdrop for me to just exist on my boat in a really peaceful sort of way. It was a pretty quiet anchorage. There wasn't a lot of that classically loud Caribbean music, and the green mountains just stretching up behind the boat were incredibly gorgeous. I felt like I sunk into another layer of getting used to being on my boat and figuring out all the living tricks, like how long my canned milk stays good for before it gets disgusting, and maybe I should smell it before I taste it. Portsmouth Harbor was relatively well protected from the waves, but we got these crazy winds that would roll off the mountain from the east coast and just hit the anchorage at 25-30 knots. There was an entire, probably about 24 hours when we were, 20 to 30 knots of wind just constantly blowing all the boats around. There was this one crazy night when the boat next to me had to re-anchor twice, and no one got any sleep because it was just so incredibly windy. Portsmouth, when it wasn't being crazy and windy, was an awesome place to do more boat projects. Since today is so stormy and nasty, I decided it would be a good day to finish my water collection system and give it a little testy poo. Today I'm finishing up the rain catchment system that was started in Martinique. So here we go. I didn't really have any great fabric for it, so I went to, there are a bunch of these shops there that sell imports from China, and they sell this vinyl stuff, which is decently strong, so I decided to double it up, and then I'm putting grommets in the corners and folding over the corner just to make it even more of a bite on it. And then for the actual water catchment part. This is a bottle lid that poked through this way and trapped the fabric in the threads, and then put this pipe through it, 4200'd it, and wrapped the whole thing in electrical tape to keep it together. So the hope is that once I have my grommet system in place, I can hang this thing up and it'll funnel water into whatever I decide to put the water into, which I think will be a process. Take this, fold it over, mark where it is, put the grommet through this way. So we come over here to my little grommety workstation. Hole punch. Here where the center is. This just punches a uniform hole of the correct size through the whole thing. Got our hole. So now I have this cute little mini grommet kit that was $10 and awesome for most things that don't require super thick, heavy duty line. So this goes through the back, and then this is the little top piece. So you take one of these, put it over the top, and then we have this goes back here. And this, you can see, has this special tip. Basically, you're squishing everything together. Boom, we have a grommet. Here we have the finished product with 3 grommets on each side. A little hose sticking out, so I'm just gonna get some line and probably rig it up in my cockpit. We'll see. We'll see. I also decided it was a good idea to fix the damage that happened to the mast of my sailing dinghy. When I was sailing it last in Antigua, I got caught in some wind that was too big for the boat, which now I know the limits of what that rig can handle. It's also an old mast, so what happened is that the bottom sort of ripped a little bit and it got stuck in the dinghy. The fix that I decided to do is pretty simple. I'm going to cut off the bottom part of the mast where the damage is, and the sail doesn't go all the way up the mast anyway, so it'll be perfect. Then it'll just reseat in the dinghy and everything's going to be good. The only thing that's going to be a little bit different is the height of the boom, but I only cut off about 2 inches, so it shouldn't really make the worst difference in the world. And now I can use my little sailing dinghy again, albeit in weaker winds. Okay, mast repair was successful. This is what I cut off, all the recty bits. And now the new one just seats in really nicely. I had to tweak the little ring that it slides through because that was bent, but now everything should be good to go. My rain catchment system is coming along. It's not the greatest. I think if I was to do it again, I would make it a circle or a triangle. But as far as a temporary jury rig majig goes, I think it's gonna work okay. It hasn't rained yet, but it keeps threatening to rain, so we'll see. So I want to give you guys a little bit more of an in-depth look at my anchoring process and some little anchoring tricks that I'm picking up. When I started this trip, I really had no experience anchoring. The schooners that I worked on, the sort of anchor mastermind was the captain, and we would just put the anchor wherever he asked. And then when I worked on charter boats, we either docked or moored them. So this was my first time really being the decision maker, and how much scope do I put out? What sort of bottom do I want to drop my anchor in? So as I'm figuring this out, I wanted to share it with you guys. So the first thing you want to look for when you're dropping your anchor is a nice sandy bottom. Down here in the Caribbean, there are a couple different bottoms that we are looking at. Some is coral, we have eelgrass, we have mud, and we have sand. Coral is not great to anchor in for a couple of reasons. One, you're killing the coral. Mud is awesome holding, but it really sucks when you're hauling back the anchor because the chain is just gonna be covered in nasty mud. You're gonna have to try to get that off before you put it in the anchor chain locker. Eelgrass is same as coral. You don't want to anchor in eelgrass if you can help it because it tears it up. But a lot of times you also don't have a choice, and that's just kind of one of the shitty things about sailing. is that you do tear up the bottom. So in response to this, a lot of Caribbean countries have started making marine parks where you can only pick up moorings, and this is really preserving the bottoms and helping them regrow their natural habitats. Sand is the best because it doesn't stick to your chain, it's good holding, you're not destroying any habitats. And often when you're in eelgrass, like I am right now, if you have two people, one can be motoring and the other one can be up front looking for a sandy patch to land the anchor. The other reason you don't want to throw your anchor in eelgrass is that it doesn't hold as well. The eelgrass just kind of tears out. Since I'm just me, I try to go for the sandy spots, but it's a lot harder. So often I just kind of end up where I end up. So let's take a look at my anchor here. I'm in eelgrass, so you'll see what that looks like. As you can see, this bottom is all eelgrass, and the sandy patches are probably where someone else had their anchor. Where my anchor is, you can see where I had dropped it at the beginning of the little sandy area, and then where it sort of dragged a little bit before it dug in and set, and that's why it's bad to anchor in eelgrass, because you're tearing up a habitat. But also, where else are you going to anchor? It's kind of a sailor's dilemma. So my anchor is set really well. It's buried in. You can see that it's got this big clump of sand behind it, and when you grab on it, it's really stuck in there. So that's an example of a good set. That's an example of a jellyfish. Now you can see all of these sandy patches where other boats have anchored, and those sort of expand. So if you were two people on a boat, the front person's looking and they would say, "Ooh, sandy patch, drop the anchor," and you can get all excited about that. So thank you for watching this video on Dominica and some more boat projects. There's always a boat project. I put up new videos every Monday evening, unless, as some people have pointed out, you live on the other side of the world, and then it's on Tuesdays. I'm really stoked to put up the answers to your questions next week, and excited to keep seeing them filtering in. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me, I have a Patreon account, patreon.com/windhippie. I also have an Instagram account @BoatLizard, where I post more regular photos and updates of where I am and what I'm doing, since, like all the other sailing channels, my videos lag a little bit behind where I actually am. I want to thank my sister Tish for continuing to upload these videos to YouTube for me on her far superior internet connection. It is the biggest relief of stress from my life ever, and thank you for being so very awesome. Also, thank you guys for all of the lovely supportive comments that you keep writing on my videos. It feels really awesome to go through and read them all. It's just really nice, so thank you guys so much. And also thank you to my patrons who are supporting me and giving me kind, loving words and making me a whole big part of that community too. That's also super exciting. So, happy Monday evening, happy Tuesday to Australians, Kiwis, and everyone else on that side of the world, and I'll see you guys next week.